Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hippy Soul Sessions, episode number 13. But today it's not unlucky 13, it's lucky 13 because we have Christina Lecuyer. I hope I said that right. She is an inspiration of mine, actually, and I reached out to her, not thinking she may or may not come back to me to come on the podcast. And when she said yes, I was like, I'm so excited because she is an inspiration. She is a confidence coach, and she has been a pro golfer, television star, podcaster, all the things. And so I'm so excited to introduce her today. Welcome, Christina.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. I can't believe that it's so interesting. I always find it so fun when people say that they've listened to me for a while or whatever it is. And I always tell people, I'm like, please say hi, send me a message, whatever. And when you sent me a message, I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Let's just pick a time. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I know that there's some people that don't have time, but if I can make time in my schedule, I always want to do this because I was in the beginning too. And I'm like, I mean, there's no levels, right? So it's just like, I'm so grateful to connect. I'm so grateful to get to connect with you and get to know you and your audience, and just so happy to do it.
Thanks, Christina. I really appreciate that. And I love that you live your message. That, again, is a massive inspiration to me. You live what you say. And I think that's amazing. So let's get to know you a little bit today and for the listeners and viewers. So tell us a little bit about your background, like being a professional golfer from a young age and the things that have happened from that.
Sounds good. Well, I always kind of started at 18. So, funny enough, I actually didn't play professional golf, or I didn't play golf at all. I grew up around golf. So, I had a very quote unquote normal childhood. I have two brothers. My parents have been married forever. I grew up in Canada. I now am an American citizen. I've lived in the States for like 20, gosh, it'll be 22 years this fall. So, it feels like forever. But I always kind of start the story with me at 18 years old because I think there's two things that were very pivotal that happened when I was 18. And sometimes people get a quick snicker out of them. But I always say that I got good at golf and I got good looking at 18. And it's kind of funny. Like people are like, haha, funny. But what happened when those two things happened at basically the same time was I got a ton of like what I call atta girls. Like, you're so pretty, you're so good at golf, your life's going to be amazing. And like, I just got this external validation that I had never had before in my life. And, truth be told, I became addicted to it. I always wanted more of that. Like, how do I get more atta girl? How do I get more, you're so great? How do I get more, you're pretty, you're skinny, you're good at golf, all the things. And unfortunately for me, like, obviously there was a lot of good times in that, but unfortunately I became addicted to that. And I became addicted to that atta girl. So for me, it meant be more successful and be skinnier. And so I unfortunately got an eating disorder and I was addicted to climbing that ladder. So, the next television gig, the next dollar sign, the next golf event, the next. And, fast forward about 9 to 10 years, I was in a really bad spot. I mean, externally, I had an amazing life. I was modeling, television, playing professional golf. I was making great money. Like, clients were paying me like $10,000 a day to play with executives. I had a really good life, but internally, I did not feel so good. Externally, life looked amazing. Things don't look that different today as they did 20 years ago, but for me internally now it's completely different. At 27, I had a horrible eating disorder and I didn't know if I wanted to live, to be 100% honest with you. And so I had to make a kind of a shift in that moment. I had to decide. So my brand is now decide it's your turn, but at the time I just knew I needed to do something different because there was a ton of people that seemed happy, that enjoyed their life, that had way less than I did. I had all the things, but I was very unhappy. And so for me, that 27-year-old self, I just really dove into self-development, personal development. I had to figure out how to enjoy myself and enjoy my life and figure out what made me happy and figure out what my purpose was on this planet, because checking all the boxes that everyone said I needed to check 100% did not make me happy. So that's kind of a short and sweet of how we got to the point of like basically overhauling my life.
Yes, yeah. And that's such an inspirational story, because it shows one external validation that doesn't make you happy. You can get as much of that as you can possibly get, and it's not going to make internally happy. Oh, just wrecked my, broke it. Um,
We're winging
and
it here.
yeah, it's just put it in. Um, yeah, so it's not going to make you happy, the external validation, and then also money is not going to make you happy either. So it's very interesting how, from people looking in on your life, would have thought, oh, you've got an amazing life. So what did you
Exactly. And
do to change? What did you do at that point to change? What kind of things to help to find your purpose did you do?
absolutely. So yeah, I think what you just said there was really good. So I'm a big proponent, anyone who listens to my podcast or follows me online at Be Christina or Decide It's Your Turn. One thing that I always say is like, I love money. I love money. I love what money does for you. Like it gives you for me,
Yes.
money is freedom. However, if you are only doing it in hopes you're going to be happy, and that could be the same thing as like getting married, losing weight, getting that career position, whatever it is. If you're seeking those things in belief that it's going to make you happy, you've got it completely backwards. So don't get me wrong, I do like money, but I also now know that the money never brought me the happiness. And so I had to figure out the inside job of it. I had to figure out what made me happy on this planet, what gave me a purpose on this planet, what did I want to do on this planet? Because unfortunately, all the boxes that I was trying to check did not satisfy that deep yearning inside myself to have a purpose and like myself and feel like I was put on this planet for more than, making money and looking a certain way. So really where I started, this was much before kind of podcasts, but I remember having a mentor, and he's been on my podcast before. His name is Justin. He's a good friend of mine, but he was probably one of the most positive, faith filled people. And I never grew up in faith at all. I didn't know really what God was. Like I didn't have a relationship. And I will definitely tell you now, even though God and I are tight and I am a Christian, for me, it's like I'm not the typical religious person. I am faith based. For me, it's God. But for me, I just had to find something outside of myself because I was trying to do everything by myself. I was trying to feel worthy by myself. I was trying to basically like do all the things by myself. And I just had to give it up to a higher power. I always say, like, you can say God, source, universe, whatever you believe, but I had to believe that there was something greater than myself. There had to be a reason. The second thing is I took personal responsibility for my life. And I say this so often with my clients, but like the greatest lesson, if you turned off this podcast right now, if the one thing that I could say to every single person is take personal responsibility for your life. Like your happiness is your job. Your satisfaction in this world is your job. It doesn't matter what you came from. It doesn't matter your situation. It does not matter. The minute you can take personal responsibility for your life, for your happiness, what you do, oh my God, your life will 180 degrees. And that's really what I had to do. And then I started having to like learn the tools. So for me, it was like mindset work. It was learning like thoughts become things. It was hiring coaches. It was going to seminars, listening to YouTube videos, reading books. I became obsessed with all things personal development.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love taking full responsibility for your happiness. It's an inside job. I love
Yeah.
that. That's really good. Um, what would you consider being confident? What would you explain that as being
To
in
me,
your full confidence?
yeah, to me, confidence is just knowing who you are and what you believe. I had a woman on my podcast. I don't know if many people would know her in Australia, and I'm sure you have a world audience, but here in the United States, there's this woman named Tommy Learn, and she's on the news here in the United States. And I was actually at a conservative women's conference, and I heard her speak, and she said something that day that really impacted me. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And she said, know what you believe and why you believe it. And to me, that is just such a confident statement. Like, know what you believe and why you believe it. And you really won't be swayed very much. Like, you and I could have very different opinions on certain things, and it doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong. But I'm confident in knowing what I believe and why I believe it. I'm willing. Confidence to me is like a muscle. The stronger it becomes, the more that you use it. So are you willing to do hard things? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to push yourself? Are you, like, for instance, you saying that, you reached out to me, that was a big stretch in your confidence muscle to know, like,
Yep.
oh, fuck, I did it. Even if I would have said no, even if I would have never replied back, at
Yep.
least you did it, right? But thank
Yep.
goodness I
100.
did message you back, because I'm sure it has built your confidence muscle a little bit more in going, yeah, you know
Yes.
what? She said yes. Who cares? I'll ask 150 people. I've asked everyone under the sun. Do you know who Kenny Chesney is, that country singer?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Kenny Chesney is like freaking massive. He's probably like one of the top 5 most famous musicians. Well, sure enough, he and I were messaging back and forth on social media. We got connected through a tournament, a golf event or whatever. And I just straight up asked him, I was like, hey, would you do my podcast? And he's like, no, I can't. And I got the no, but hey, at least I had the ability to ask. Fuck it.
He
Who
could have said
cares?
yes. Yeah. You
Exactly.
never know. Well,
Exactly. And if
actually,
I
one of your
didn't, go ahead.
yeah, exactly. One of your podcasts inspired me too. It was one where you said you were a part of a group with like high executives, and you were like,
Yeah.
stuff it. I'm just going to put a message in there. I'm just going to see if anyone replies. And then you were really surprised. There was all these people, and you were like, oh my God.
Oh my God, that's so funny that, yeah. So my YPO group, so my husband's a
Yeah,
part of
that's
this
it.
thing called YPO. Yeah. And I've gotten TP from that. Did you listen to the TP Chopra one
No, I know,
podcast?
but yeah, I haven't listened to that one yet,
Yeah,
but I
you
will.
should listen to that one. It was my favorite podcast that I've done to date. And I actually just did a podcast with another YPOer. And then there was another girl that I did a YPO chat with. And I actually have a conversation. My call right after this podcast is with another YPOer. So you never know who's going to say yes or no. Like, I've just
Yes.
had some amazing connections just by the willingness of fucking trying.
Yeah. Exactly. And I love that. I think that's a great message for people too. Like not only for me, but for everyone listening and watching, just to take a chance. Give
Yeah, who
something a crack.
cares? Life's too short.
Yeah, exactly. Another podcast I listened to just recently of yours was when you and your husband went on holidays to Hawaii, and you were saying this was a great podcast, and I like hearing the dynamics between the two, and then also you're saying the interesting thing how you've designed your life is that you can go on holidays, it doesn't change too much from your personal life, and I thought that was really interesting and a good way of putting it to design your life, and for others listening that go, I want to design my life, because that's what it's about. It's designing your life
Yeah.
to fit how you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of gone against the grain. The interesting thing about me is, well, like a lot of people outside looking in, social media is such a blessing, but it's also a curse too, right? You can look at social media and be like, oh my God, that person's life amazing. My life is shit. And that is, one of the worst things that you can possibly do, because you really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I am very vulnerable. I put out about 75% of my life, but I also too have really shitty days. I also have problems. I also have family stuff. I also have so much shit behind the scenes, but people sometimes say to me, they're like, oh man, I wish I could have your life. And, sometimes I really say to them, I'm like, are you making the same decisions that I've made in life in order to have this? And so you have to be really clear
Yeah.
on what it is that you want. My husband, we've been together 20 something years, and like, he's literally turned off his phone one time in our whole entire marriage. I work a lot. I chose not to have children. There's a lot of things a lot of decisions that I've made that have allowed me to have this life. But I think, going back to what you said, that I think is so bang on, is know what you want. That's the reason why I say clarity is such a big, important thing, is because you may not actually want my life. You think you want my life, but once you actually see it, you might not really want it. So know what you want, and then anything is possible. Like, yeah, when we created our vacation time, we're leaving again in April for a couple weeks. And if you just really are clear on what you want, it's amazing what you can create in your life.
Yes. Yeah, and that is amazing and everyone's different. So it's to create what suits you for your life. What do you want? Because there was you work on your holiday while you're on holidays,
Oh yeah.
but for you it doesn't feel like work. Like if you're going to do a podcast, you're like, this is awesome. I get to talk to my husband, get to work. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
What made you decide to start your podcast?
Gosh, it's so funny. I've worked with the same exact coach for about 5 or 6 years now. I guess 5 years. And the first 2 years, I was like, no, I can't. I'm too busy. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And the one thing about me is I like the human interaction. I like the talking much more than I like writing. And it was so funny. I was always so concerned on like emails and all the things, and yet people love my energy. Like I know, like I'm not being braggy, but like I love talking to other humans. Like I love the conversation. I love getting to do this, right? And it was
Yeah.
so funny. I put it off for such a long period of time because it's just the starting aspect, right? I felt like, oh my gosh, starting is so hard. And like, what am I going to do? And I don't know how to do it. And how much time is it going to take? Totally.
Yeah.
What am I going to talk about? How am I going to get gas? Blah, blah, blah. All the fucking things that everyone is always concerned about. But the thing is, all I had to do was just take the first step and the first step and the first step and have some accountability behind it. And now, sure enough, we're like 3 years in, a little over 3 years in, and I'm batched out until May. So it's like once you start, it becomes so much
Awesome.
easier.
Yes. Yeah. I love the name of your podcast, Decide It's Your Turn, because that is such a inspirational quote. Decide it's your turn. How did you come up with that?
Well,
Is
gosh,
that
that
something
was
you always say?
you know what? No, that was a very much a God thing for me because I hosted my very first, and this is like a good story for your audience because everyone kind of can look at my business and my social platform now. But back in 2018, I met a woman and she had a big social media following. I had probably 10,000 followers, but I'd say at least 5,000 of them were guys from golf. So I really didn't have that many followers, but she had a big social media following. She'd been in the industry for a few years and she and I really connected at a mastermind. And we decided we were going to put on our very first in-person women's event. And it was going to be amazing. We were going to like blow it out. We had like $100,000 budget. We were going to bring in hundreds of women. It was going to be the best thing ever. Like we were going to blow it out. And unfortunately, 10 days after the tickets were released, she decided she didn't want to do it. And so it was probably, you obviously haven't listened to that podcast. For those of you who want to hear the story, go listen to, it was one of my very first podcasts I did. It was called How I Lost $50,000 and Gained Confidence. And I thought it was a great title. That's the only reason why I'm saying it. But
That's a great title.
it really is. And it's a true statement, I promise you. But I ended up doing the event. And during the period of the event, there was a numerous names going to be thrown around. And I just came up with Decide It's Your Turn. And thankfully, like when she pulled out, I took over the contract, I took over everything, and I took over the trademark. I trademarked the Decide It's Your Turn after. And that's been my whole business ever since. So it was very much like the hardest thing of my life, but the best thing.
Yes, and that isn't that awesome? Because a lot of the time when something bad happens, you think it's the worst thing ever, but sometimes it's like it's showing you a different way. It's showing you this could be really cool over here.
Absolutely. So
Oh,
why
that's
did
so
you
cool.
name your podcast? Let's talk about you for a second. Why, I know I'm not supposed to,
Me.
but why did you start a podcast and why did you call it Hippy Soul Sessions?
Okay, so I'm a full hippie at heart. So I'm born in the 80s, but like I love it. Like growing up on the 70s music, 60s, 70s, 80s. So I'm full hippie. I used to have dreads down to here. I've only just sort of taken them off. So I have like, I got no hair.
Yeah.
um, and so everyone knows me as I'm a hippie. Um, so I just thought that'd be a cool way to sort of attract my tribe as well. So like calling it Hippy Soul Sessions, people would be like, okay, like if they're that way inclined, they'll be like, yeah, I want to listen to that. I just thought it had a
I love
cool
it.
sound. And the reason why I wanted to do a podcast is I love talking to different people. I'm a hairdresser of like 25 years. So I'm used to talking to people. So once I stopped doing hairdressing, I was like, where's all my people at? I want to talk. I want to, like, all day, every day is to talk now. I hardly do. So I'm like, no, I'm going to talk. And I love interviewing people. I've always have. Like, it's just part of me. So
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing.
I was like, I'm not prepared for this, getting interviewed.
Like, this was not even a question, damn it. Stick to the script.
Yeah. I said that to you in the message. I was like, who knows where it's going to go? But that's what I love about podcasting too. That's one big part of it, is that there's no actual script. You can have kind of a plan, it doesn't have to go to plan, and anything can happen. I actually like that kind of risky risky thing that can happen.
Well, you listen to my podcast, you know I'm like fucking all over the place. I don't even know how I've had a successful podcast and people actually listen
That's
to it,
why
because I am
though.
like, I guess so, because I'm like fucking 3,000 things over here,
Yeah.
over there, and my husband is the exact opposite. Like, the way I operate, he just cannot even deal with it. He is like,
Can't handle
you
it.
have no plan. I'm like, yeah, but that's the fucking best podcast there is.
Yeah, the last one I listened to was the one in Hawaii, and he was
Yeah.
trying to plan it all, and you're like, no,
Oh God,
not
he's
happening.
crazy. Not happening.
So we worked out that Christina and I will be like very in a similar path, because I'm going over to America to see my brother. She lives in Arkansas, but it's a little bit out of that. Um,
Yeah.
and well, I'll be traveling through there at the same time, so maybe we might be able to catch up too. Say
There
hello.
we go.
um, and so, how long have you lived there?
22 years. So I grew up in Canada, but I moved to Arkansas to play college golf in 2002. Or 2002. Yeah, 2002. I was going to
Yeah.
say 22, but no, 2002. So 22 years ago.
Oh wow! And from Canada?
Yeah.
Across, yeah, yeah. Oh wow! And so what advice would you give to someone that was going to move for their career? What would be a big lesson that you learnt from doing that?
You know, when I originally, so I grew up in Edmonton, Canada, which is a big city, like a million people, and I got the scholarship to come here to Arkansas to play golf. And, you know, Arkansas, the town that we live in at the time had like, oh gosh, I think 35,000 people. I went from a city of a million, like close to a million population. So it was big difference for me. And, you know, I literally did not want to be here for the first probably 6 months to a year. But after that first full year of being here, I'll tell you, I had the best experience in college ever. My college roommates, a few of them are still my best girlfriends to this day. I met my husband my second year here. So in 2003, I met my husband. So it just ended up being the best thing ever. I now say that Arkansas is the greatest place on the planet. I love living here. I'm the proudest American you'll ever meet. You know, there's, you know, other countries are amazing. I love Australia. I love Canada. But I feel like America, and your brother lives here, and so perhaps he has the same sentiment. But I just think it's the greatest country in the whole entire world. If you want to do something, you can do it. And, you know, no country is perfect and nothing is perfect, but it is just the land of opportunity still to this day. You can do whatever you
Oh
want to
wow!
do. You can make the money you want to make. You can live very, very safely. It's a beautiful place to be. I think even during, you know, I always said during COVID, in Arkansas, it was very much like not really that big of a deal. Like we were pretty much all living pretty normally, even during COVID. And we always said we're so blessed to live where we live, because it's just a beautiful place. You'll see it when you come to
Yes, I
Nashville,
can't
or
wait.
it's
Mm.
absolutely the most beautiful part of the country, the South. So I'm very, very, very
Oh
proud
wow!
American.
Yes, yeah, no. Carl always describes. I've been over there twice.
Yeah.
In different spots to visit him. But yeah, he always describes, because he travels with his fishing round. So he'll say like, this place is beautiful. Like yeah, he often talks about Arkansas. And when I first
Yeah.
saw the name of it, when Andy and I, my partner, when we first were over, I said, "What's Arkansas? Where's that?" And he's like, "That's full Australian says. Don't do that." He's like, "It's Arkansas."
I love it. Yeah, Arkansas. A
Arkansas.
lot of people call it
Yeah, oh,
Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah. He's like, "No, don't do that." Um, I have actually some questions here. I just wanna make sure I'm saying the ones that I wanted to ask you. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
one of the big ones would be that many people struggle with, balancing ambition and self-care. And what would you suggest for people, because you have high ambition, but you have high self-care. How do you sort of balance those 2?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, I think I'm probably going to give you not like a great answer. And the reason for that is I don't know if you can balance anything. I'm not a big fan of balance. I think that there's seasons. So I always tell my clients, that there's different seasons in life. Sometimes we have to double down on work. When I was just explaining, when I was doing that event, that big event in 2019, I had to say no to a ton of things. I am very, very blessed in life. I did a lot of celebrity golf tournament events. And I had the opportunity to, jump on a private jet and go do a corporate golf tournament in Mexico. And I had to say no. I had to say no to long weekends. I had to say no to going out with friends. I had to say no to a lot of things during that season when I was trying to do the thing that mattered to me most at the time, which was to put on this really brilliant event because I promised people who were flying in from all over the world to come and attend this event that I was going to put on the best event ever. And I did. And it was amazing. But it was also 5 months of freaking torture and stress and heartache and losing money and all of the things. So I think sometimes there's seasons where you're really going to neglect certain things. There's been seasons where I've neglected my health as much, like there's been seasons where I wasn't super fit and I wasn't, giving myself the time. But then there's seasons where I don't work as much. And there's seasons where perhaps I don't care about the money as much or I don't care about the business as much. So overall, I think I do a pretty good job. I always say that like, I'm just not an asshole at anything. And what I mean by that is like, I don't ever eat like an asshole. I don't ever 100% not work out. I don't ever 100% like not sleep. I don't ever 100% leave my business. Like, I think I just do everything like in moderation. Like, I don't really overeat. I don't really overdrink. I like walk every day. I like work on my business every single day of the year, sometimes more, sometimes less. But I think that I've learned how to do that. And I've made that a priority in my life because I know I think this is the reason why I do complimentary clarity calls all the time for people. Because I think one of the things that people lack is clarity on what they really want. And I think once you're clear on really what you want, then it's just, the 2 things that I coach on is mindset and strategy. Because I think once you're clear on what you want, and sometimes it takes time to get really clear on what you want. And oftentimes you say that you're going to do this thing, but you get something completely different. But as long as you're clear on like what you're working towards, then it's just a matter of mindset and strategy to really ensure that you're taking small action steps to get what you want. I used to work out when I had an eating disorder. I used to work out hours a day because I hated myself and I wanted to be skinny. I now know that like my goal is to be like 85 years old and super flexible and being able to walk and like, if I wanted to go walk through Paris, I could because I had my health. And so for me, I prioritize walking, health, mobility,
Yep.
little things because that's the life that I want. And I'm very clear on like, that is what I want. That's who I want to show up as. And so I think anyone who's struggling with, balance of work or self-care, it's like, know what you want and then be able to commit the certain times. Sometimes it's going to be a lot to certain things. Like if you have 50 pounds to lose and you've neglected your health your whole entire life, you might have to double down during that season. And maybe your work life will struggle a little bit, but I think it's just seasons of everything.
Yes, I love that. It's a really great way to describe it. Like there's seasons so that you're not so hard on yourself. A lot of the time people are so
Amen.
hard on themselves if they, fall off the horse in one area. They're like, oh my God, like shouldn't be doing that. So that's a great way of looking at it, and to be softer on yourself for, if there's an area where you're like, that's a winter season,
Yeah.
of that area. So probably one of the questions from that what you've just said is how, like, for someone that wants to change their life but they have no clarity, how do they start to get the clarity?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if it is it work or do you mean clarity on business or do you mean clarity on like what do you want in your life?
Maybe what you want in your life, because then that can kind of like continues on to business. So more like,
Totally.
yeah, because I know a lot of people, and people have come to me with no clarity at all, and so yeah, I'd like to hear your.
So I like to start with like these three questions because I always say like, what is it that gets you super excited? Like, there's got to be something on the planet that spikes your voice with excitement. You and I don't know you. We've connected a little bit, but I could talk to you all day about this shit. I could do this for 6 hours. Like,
Yeah,
I just fucking love
yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, it's what I want to do. And then
yeah,
also too, like what injustice do you see in the world? So for me, like I hate seeing people stuck. I hate people in that like victim mentality that like, woe is me. I came from this. I can't change. And I am a bit of a tough ass because I do know that it is possible to change. Yes, it is harder for some people. And yes, some people come from horrific parts of your life. But I also look at it as, okay, what other fucking option do you have? Like, I want you to live your best life. Like, people say to me sometimes, you're like, you're trying to sell your coaching. I'm like, fuck yes, I am. It's the number one thing I'm fucking trying to do because, like,
yeah,
I know that I can help you. I know that I can help you get clear. I can help you get confident. I can hold you accountable. I can get you out of the situation that you want to be in. So, absolutely. And I think that passion that I have, everyone has that for something. Like, I don't care if it's like gardening or like raising your children or making jewelry or hairdressing or whatever it is. Like, there is something on this planet that you care about, and figuring out how to like really cultivate that and get clear on what it is around that you want to do. Because people who have a passion, people who have um passion and purpose on this planet, they do really good things. And I think I always say that we have a God-given responsibility to do the thing that we're put here to do. And it doesn't have to make money all the time, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, changing the world. We don't have to be like Elon Musk. You can like change two people's lives, and that matters.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And um, the other thing is too is I think a lot of people don't step into what they want to do, their passion, because they think there has to be perfect. What would your suggestion be there?
Yeah, nothing is in the beginning. Who's fucking perfect? Like, if you think it's supposed to be right, if you it's supposed to be perfect in the beginning, you'll never do it. And
Yep.
one thing, the number one thing that stops most people is thinking 5 steps, 10 steps, a year down the road. Like, I would have never, and I'm sure you're similar, you probably would have never started a podcast if you knew all of the things that you know today. I
Yeah.
always tell this story that the guy who does my nails, or him and his sister, have done my nails for like, God, 15, 20 years. I've been going to the same exact people. And Tommy said to me one day, he's like, Christina, how do you do everything that you do? Like, I just would be so overwhelmed with doing everything you did. I go, Tommy, when I first started, I just did the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I didn't know I'd have to do all of the things that I do today, or I never would have started. And that's the
Yeah.
number one thing that stops everyone. You're thinking 10 steps down the road, 5 steps down the road, 50 steps down the road. You just have to take that next step, folks. And trust me, a year from now, 6 months from now, 10 years from now, you won't even recognize where you are.
Yes. And if you focus on that big job, it just seems way too much, like overwhelm. Yeah.
Yes,
Follow the steps of what you love, like where time doesn't exist. Continue to
exactly. I
do that.
love that.
I love your message. So awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Can you tell everyone how they can follow your podcast, how they can follow you, and also just before we go, the importance of having a coach and why you would you know why you do what you do.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, the importance of having a coach thing, it's so interesting. People invest so much time and so much money into things that really ultimately don't bring them the joy of really getting clear and confident inside yourself. If I tell someone, it'll cost $5,000 to go on this trip around the world or whatever. And people can justify that. I'm holding a cell phone for those aren't listening. If my cell phone broke today, or if your cell phone broke today, chances are you would find $1,000 to go and buy a new cell phone. Like, not very many people would go a day without a cell phone. You find money and you find time for things that you prioritize in your life. But I will tell you, oftentimes a lot of people say, like, I'm saving for the trip, or I'm saving for the house, or whatever. But ultimately, if it's always something outside of yourself, and don't get me wrong, I'm a girl who travels. I fucking love nice things. But when those nice things are no longer nice, they're just things. And unless you figure out how to take care of yourself on the inside and spend time, money, energy, effort to get clear, get confident, find your joy, figure out that you're in control of your life. When you invest in yourself, there is not a better investment on the planet. And for those who have done it, everyone who has done it, I'm sure you've done it,
Yep.
you put your hand
Yep.
up, you wave that flag, and you say, there is not a better dollar, not a better use of your time ever than investing in yourself and finding someone to support you to get to your next level, or find that joy, or whatever it is. You just have to I would tell every single person, just fucking try. It doesn't have to solve all your problems. I often say, when someone wants to work with me, I often say, do you believe that this will get you closer or further away from what it is that you want? And 99.9999% of the time, it will get you closer. There's no finish line. There's not like this grand finale of, once I fix this, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But will it get you closer to the life, to the business, to the joy? And if the answer is
Yeah.
yes, do that thing, guys. Because I often say, like, for business wise, the more that you can be in abundance, be in joy, be clear, be confident, the more money you'll make. Oftentimes people don't see the connection or the correlation between really being in alignment and making money. I will tell you, I do not have to think about money very often, because I am so in alignment with what I do. I'm so possessed with helping people. I'm so possessed on helping people become their best version, step into their best alignment in business and in life, that if I do my job well, money will follow. And I think a lot of people just don't see that correlation. So if you take
Mm.
one thing from this podcast, is like, invest in yourself. Just fucking try. There's so much money in this world. You can always make more money. You can always go on another trip, but self-development, taking care of yourself, getting clear, getting confident about what you love, and living that God-given purpose. There's not a better investment in your life. And so reach out to Sarah. If I can help at all, reach out to me, because
Yeah.
it is just truly, truly a blessing. So that's what I'll say.
Uh,
I'm a big soapbox person for, self-development and investing in yourself and having coaches. Like, I pay for all of the
Amazing.
support, folks. I have it all. I'm here for it.
I love that. And that's that's why I love you, because you're just a really big supporter of that and really taking charge of helping people to take charge of their own life. It's their turn. Go and do it. Get out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
life's
that,
too
Chris.
short not to. So yeah, my
Exactly.
podcast is the Decide It's Your Turn podcast. I have the Decide It's Your Turn Instagram account, and then my personal Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the things is Be Christina, because I encourage everyone to be themselves, Plus, you said my last name perfectly, but my last name's really hard to fucking spell, so it's B Christina.
I wasn't sure. I was like, I think I said it right, but I was like,
Yes,
be in
you
the
did.
Aussie
It was
accent.
perfect.
So,
I love it.
thank you so much, Christina, for your time. I am so grateful, and I'm fangirling, you know. So I
Oh
love
my
your
gosh.
work,
Well, thank you for
and
having me.
I think everyone listening and watching would have got so much out of today. So thank you for being on the Hippy Soul Sessions for episode 13. That's not unlucky 13; it's lucky 13. Thanks, Christina, and enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully, I'll see you in America.
Yes, exactly. Enjoy your trip. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate
Yes.
it. Thanks, girl.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was Christina Lecuyer. She's absolutely amazing. I hope you got a lot out of today. I know I did. So see you next week for the next episode of the Hippie Soul Sessions. Make love, not war with yourself. Peace.